Pat.
And this is a Personnel Board meeting for October 24th, 2017. And we have a quorum, and we've lost our minutes for today.
Probably in the printer. That's okay.
Okay?
I did them. I
Yeah.
printed them.
Yeah, but they're not with us.
They're not
Right.
with me, no.
Okay,
Next time.
so next time. All right, and old business time is the PPM review, which I'm hoping that you guys,
I just received mine
I
today.
had members, I had,
Yeah, I just received mine today, so I will go back.
I went over quite a bit of it.
Is it good or bad?
Things that we had wanted to change, I didn't see that they were changed. No, there's, well, this is the markup that Mike had done.
Yeah,
So there are some things that he changed, which he had the right to do, but just like, you know, it takes out our ability to make amendments. And there's no.
amendments to that
What-
document?
To this
Yeah, what
document.
number, page?
Okay, all right, I'm on page 11, 1.4.
1.4.
And then in 1.5, there's no way for us to ever find out if new laws have been passed. He had taken out that the personnel assistant shall bring to the board's attention changes in the laws. So, I mean, unless you tell us, we don't know that something's changed, like the family leave or, you know, something like that. And then this was never straightened out. 4.1. All right, let me see if I can figure out what I was doing. Okay, it was, well, it takes out our assigning
The
the
classification system.
classification system. And it also took out, for 4.3, we had wanted establishment of regular working hours with the exception of the water sewer department and the library. They don't come under the administrator, right? They come under the trustees and the
water sewer.
water sewer commissioner. So that was taken out. And then, I don't know how many times we've done this, under 4.4, we wanted the last sentence brought up
To the top.
to the top as hourly employees instead of at the bottom. You know, it's based on
That's a-
actual hours worked.
Right. See where it says compensation for hourly employees, right, at 4.4? It's under
Do I
salaried
have
employees.
an extra
and that
one
should
of
have been-
these?
Let me do that.
Do you,
I-
do you want? Under 4.4, which, I don't know if it's page 17 on that or not.
Yeah, page 17 I have here.
That one's not exactly like this, but under, where it says salaried employees, the very last sentence.
Yeah, it doesn't belong there.
No, it should go up.
Okay.
And then under the next part, 4.5, we wanted, it says part-time employee, full-time and part-time employees will be evaluated on an annual basis. We wanted it to say prior to November 30th of each year. Otherwise, it just doesn't get done. And it needs to be done before the budget process starts in.
Was that November 30th?
November
30th, right.
30th, yeah.
But it's salary increases, does it say anywhere that they're based on merit or?
It does. It says that it's not a guarantee for a raise. I'm trying to think of where it says that, performance employee. It does say it here. Guess I'm not gonna find it now. Maybe it's been taken out.
Now, when the selectmen
Gee, it was in here. Maybe it's been taken out.
review all of this, they would have to know that it has been taken out, these
You're
types
right.
of things.
What's
Right.
missing, yeah.
Let's see if I can find it in the original.
No, it's in the same, it's actually in 4.5, right
Okay.
where you just were.
Okay.
It's the next sentence. A performance review is not a guarantee for a salary adjustment.
Okay, you don't have the same copy I have. I think it's been taken out of my copy. This was the copy that Mike had been working on.
Okay,
Is it there?
yeah, it is.
Oh.
Right above your green, you got so many colors of
I
highlighter going
know.
there, it's right
Oh,
above
there
the
it
green.
is. Yeah, okay, you're right. Can I just say, edit that out?
No, that's all right, this is an 85-page document, I'm sure we'll struggle to find things. On your first comment, you know, it is my intention to bring things to your attention as they're changed, and to bring my proposed changes to you for your advice. So I don't want there to be any doubt as to how we want this to work.
Right.
And I'll update you later in this meeting on what I'm working on, so that you can look forward to it being on future agendas. So I don't want that clause to be in there that suggests that we won't consult with you. That's not the point. And I'll have to look at your other specific comments. I did take notes. I wrote them down on 4.1, 4.3.
Okay. I mean,
And 4.4 is kind of a no-brainer. That, if anything, is a typo, a cutting and pasting error.
right,
that
and
somebody
we've
made.
brought that up at least 3 times, but it just hasn't gotten changed, so,
Yeah, it's been I mean,
yeah.
Mike left early in the year, and it's been a while since,
And we hadn't met with him for months.
a while, so, yeah.
And then my other question, under 5.4.
Is that 4.5 or 5.4?
5.4, the discrimination and grievance procedure. I don't think, I mean, we were developing forms like for a grievance procedure, but I don't think this copy was going to include them. And that's something that, you know, we should discuss, whether we should have forms. And should they, well, our point was that every form that the town uses
Should be in
should
here.
be in
In
here.
here.
Mhm.
And available on the website for, you know, department heads and employees.
But we were told that they are available, but
Somewhere,
somewhere mysterious, but not to the general public. Only to, and not to us.
right.
So,
And I don't think they really all have to be available to the general public, but I think all employees are.
Is there a central thing for the employees to obtain online? In other words, do you have something besides the homepage that they can go into?
yes.
I know what you're referring to, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, because it'd be something, we were looking at having all forms available, one place to go, here's the forms.
Right.
Yeah, I think
And then-
Jean might have them somehow.
Well, that's the
Either
thing.
Jean or Suzanne has them, but really, when we start our employment, we do get a folder that does have the policies in it, but that should also have every form we would ever need
Yeah.
attached to it,
Right.
so that we just go back to our folder whenever we are looking for it.
But, well, okay.
So that would be the goal, is that nobody should be casting about trying to find these things.
Right.
They should, because we don't want people to have to interact with someone who's not part of the process, if there's a grievance process, because it kind of says, I'm about to file a grievance,
Yeah, right.
and you have no right to know, but because you have the form,
Oh,
I
yeah,
have to
I have to
ask you
ask you
for
for
it.
it. Exactly,
That
exactly.
shouldn't be so. So, yeah.
And since this is gonna be online, and it has forms in it. like I
And it's
say, I
85
couldn't-
pages long, why print it out all the time?
Well, you could just print out one page that you need.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
It's like
Yeah, but
forms,
you don't have to give every employee a copy of it, because what are they gonna do with it?
so you should initially give them a copy. It's good to have something.
Yeah,
But that's old school, I would like a copy, but
Right.
the younger people that get hired these days, they could care less.
but in some cases, we can't let them escape. So, to the extent that
Oh, they
we
have to
are-
sign off on
we
it.
have to sign off, especially on the harassment policy,
Right.
every year. So
Yeah.
they do kind of need copies of it. They're gonna give them copies of pieces of it, you might as well give them the whole thing, one time. Okay. This, when it comes to discrimination grievances, and I've been sitting through all these trainings that Maya puts on. And there's a battery of 3, my last one is tomorrow, actually. The proper footing, the proper means to address all of these things. One of the things that has been very specifically pointed out is that we cannot require that grievance be in writing. We're to investigate anything that's brought to us, regardless of whether it's verbal or written. So this might need to be updated with the more current doctrine from the Office of, what do they call themselves? I don't want to be specific. It's the commission.
Maya's the insurance people, right?
Yeah, so Maya provides us with the training so that we don't do the wrong thing and create liability.
Right.
The commission jointly conducts the training with them to walk us through the steps we're supposed to take if there is an issue that rises to the level of. I'm not entirely comfortable with this 5th paragraph. The grievance procedure is meant to be informal, cannot be legally binding on either party. You can't waive your right to file a complaint with the commission if you choose to do so, but
So this
we-
is going
we can
beyond
settle,
the doors
We can
here.
settle these things locally and bind ourselves to that settlement. So that language is a little too broad. We'll have to tighten that up too.
Go ahead.
Okay, my next thing, and this is in the bylaw, that we will reimburse people for education, if they take courses in their field. But the form is here. So I think it should be somewhere mentioned here at least, that if you take courses and are approved for it, you can get reimbursed. It should be something real short, but I think it should be mentioned if the form is here. I don't think I really had too much more, except I still didn't get all the forms together, but I do think I have them all. Oh, and then we had a question, this, I don't know, we were going to, on 5.18, we were just gonna cite the Mass General Law, which it doesn't, I don't think it does cite it, I think it's Mass General Law 151, sections 1 through 22. We just decided we wanted that in.
What's
The
the,
5 point what? 1, 2?
5.18.
8.
I had written down at that time that it was Mass General Law 151, which probably Jean told us, sections 1 through 22. And then we did have a 6.3.3, which has been taken out of this, which I think when the last time we met, we had said it should be left in, which I'm not even, I didn't write down something about if you leave and you have vacation time left,
oh, yeah,
you know.
there was a big meeting about that, wasn't there?
My memory's gone, don't ask me.
No, I remember that,
But yeah, that had been taken out, and we had said maybe it should be addressed. I don't even know where it is now. 6.3.3. the numbers don't correspond with the original one, so I don't know. But it is about, if you sever
Resign,
your employment and you have vacation time left.
if you get paid for it, and when you get awarded, is it awarded on the fiscal year or when you're hired?
I think it's on the basis of when you're hired. Well, I don't know, I don't know what my note means. It just says leave in or take out vacation or leave in sick. That's my note. I would have to go over that.
Because it is missing here, 6.3.2.
Yeah, and that's
skips
what
the
it was,
4.
6.3.3,
3.3.
whatever that was,
Mm.
that's what I was referring to, that particular, maybe it's here, maybe it's not when you leave, maybe it's something else.
Well, I have a note here, it just says
yeah.
6.3.3, it says missing.
It is, it's disposition of
Disposition of
vacation and sick time,
of sick
yes,
leave, yeah.
that's what it is. I don't know if you want to read what the original said. And that's it. Just getting all those forms in order, because a lot of forms were left out of this.
Do we ever get the timesheet forms? Both of
I
those,
think I
get them
have it.
updated?
I think I have it right
Yeah,
here.
they were weird though, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were all very strange.
Yeah, I have, now this was one that the highway uses this form, but no one else does, I don't think, a vacation request form. Because of the fact that we need the guys
Yeah,
when
so
it's snowing, you know?
yeah.
And this was the timesheet for hourly workers. This was the payroll change notice, so if someone gets
A
a
raise.
raise. I don't think we had those before.
Yeah, 'cause I had this, but it needed some changing here.
Okay, that is
And
the
this-
hourly one.
The
right?
hourly, yeah.
I printed mine in the other direction, but.
Where does this come from?
What, the 6.3.3?
6.3, unpaid leave of absence. Is this an attempt to? No, because family medical leave is later on, 6.5. To create another form of administrative leave above and beyond
I don't know.
family medical leave and maternity leave.
6.5?
It's an unpaid leave of absence. 15 to 90 calendar days.
6.5?
No, I'm at 6.3, but what I was asking is, why is 6.3 here if 6.5 is already here?
And that's the family leave.
Yeah. It's not that it's wrong that it's there, it's just that it's a rather extraordinary 90 days. Unbenefited time.
So it does sound just like a family leave.
Well, no, it's a generous provision, so I'm,
Let's see what it is.
I guess I'm signaling I probably would never approve it.
Yeah.
But now, the more I think about it, there are,
Se-
I can imagine
circumstances.
circumstances that wouldn't qualify for family medical leave, but that.
Right.
Yeah,
We can take it out, we just should renumber.
but I agree with, no, I agree with your note in the column there where it says you need to clarify the status of the two different forms of benefit time. If that unpaid administrative leave were provided to someone, you would have to say what is happening with their accruals and whether or not they're going to
Is it,
able to cash out their time.
so, I'm not reading any of these things, but if it's an unpaid administrative leave, when you read in the paper about that this fire chief has been
Right.
put on paid administrative leave or something, and when does it happen that a person gets put on an unpaid leave? Now, did we talk to you about that, or did, I think maybe.
Mike had mentioned it, and I
yeah.
can't remember what,
I don't remember it either, but it might
Why
be
someone
something
would be
legal
on a
too that you're
unpaid.
stuck with, that you can't.
Yeah, that's coming at the request of an employee. Once in my career, I've granted it. A gentleman who worked in the Department of Public Works at a prior employer of mine exhausted his family medical leave during the eligibility period of 1 calendar year, but was seeking additional medical advice. It was discretionary leave on my part. It happened to be a very good employee. So I granted 2 more weeks of leave, but it was without pay and without benefits. It was understood that he was on his own to pay premiums, and he would not receive any paycheck from us. His union was going to give him a small stipend, but that's just the way that union works, the Teamsters. And he eventually did return to employment. So I have done it. But it was extraordinary circumstances that gave rise to it. There was an end in sight.
this one says, the paragraph before, an employee requesting a leave of absence for any reason, so it doesn't have to be,
No, it doesn't. And we don't ask for medical information.
I may need a year off to find myself, you know?
Yeah, no,
I want to be a Fulbright scholar.
my father was a political cartoonist for 20 years or something like that, 25 years. And he decided he wanted to take a 6 months leave of absence. So he asked for it, and they refused it of him. And so he went off to Europe, took it anyway, you know, and immediately after his 4 weeks vacation was up, they sent him a "you're fired" letter. So he said, "Thank you for your edict." So he didn't care. He just wanted out at that point. He was ready to retire. So, but I guess back then, you know, and this would have been in the 60s or 70s. You know, they don't have as much, or they didn't have as much stupidness around that they do now. You know, or there's too much law. I don't mean to, you know, slap you in the face, but.
Oh, no. I'm agreeing with you. There's a lot of law and there's a lot of things have changed. And, you know, it's not often understood that family medical leave, the employer can require the employee to charge out all their benefit time during that period, so that when you reach the end of that period, if there were to be a separation, you wouldn't owe anything and they wouldn't be accruing time. So there are lots of little wrinkles like that. It is time for department heads and labor council to have a refresher session,
Yeah.
and then to kind of incorporate that into here. On your comment, on the Fair Labor Standards Act provision, which I think is 5.18, there may be a state law that mirrors the federal act, but this is the federal code,
Okay,
so that I don't know that we need a state citation
okay,
to the general laws. We can see if there is a slightly more, if Massachusetts has determined that it wants to be more generous, it might be able to do that. But I also have a couple of problems with this being here. The FLSA does kick in for 40 hours for most employees, but there are specific exemptions for police officers and firefighters. And police officers, that's gonna be right around 43 hours a week, and for The fire department, it's gonna be right around 53. It might be 46 and 53. I'll go back and check, but what my point is, public safety officials, officers are not kept to 40 hours. That's a standard office worker maximum.
So they can't pay, until they get over 46 or 53 hours, they aren't paid overtime. Is that what you're saying?
That's the allowance under federal law, depending on how your schedule is set up. That's sort of establishes the ceiling. We can require, for instance, we do have a 56-hour work week on average for our full-time firefighter EMTs here in Douglas. But there's a mandatory overtime built in for 3 of those hours, because it's understood that the schedule includes that overtime. But generally speaking, we would do a look back that has to be consistent amongst all of our employees. We have to have the same number, whether we look back 7 days, 14 days, 28 days is the maximum. And it's hours worked. So if we had a 28-day look back, an office worker who was maximum is 40 hours a week would be at 160 hours for the 4 weeks. And it would have to be hours worked, and these categories would not be included. Sick, vacation, and personal time, because those are not hours worked. Standard practice on the management side of the coin is to strictly adhere to that, unless you have an employment contract with a collective bargaining unit that is specifically this generous, that would say you can use your sick, personal, and vacation towards the 40. You typically wouldn't. The federal law doesn't
Right.
require it, so you wouldn't actually have a phrase like this in here. So that's another section that just needs to be reviewed with Labor Council and tightened up. Because we wouldn't want a policy that's more generous than the federal law. If we don't have to negotiate it, we wouldn't grant it typically.
Right, I had a little note here that says earned time includes benefits, vacation, sick, holidays, and personal.
Yeah.
And that must have been something that Jean talked about when she came to our meeting. Because we didn't know what the difference between earned time was and,
So it does include it. So that's contradictory to
Yeah,
what you
and
just
it
said.
might just be the notation, but, you might not have heard it right, because the earned time does not include those
Okay.
categories.
Yeah.
okay.
Where is that noted? What number?
That's
That was
5.18.
5.18. I just
Oh,
wrote in the
18 still?
margin, earned time includes benefits.
Does it say anywhere in here, I think I've mentioned this a number of times, if the bosses, what are they called?
Department heads?
Yes. That they don't get compensatory time?
That's right.
Okay, so that's standard.
Yeah,
We don't get overtime, we don't get comp time.
Okay, good. And is that in here somewhere?
That's gonna
Well,
be in your
It
salary
would be
section.
contracts.
Yeah,
I think
it'd
it's
be-
salary.
those who have a contract, it would say that in our contract, and it does, I know.
it
for a
says
fact.
covered non-exempt workers, are entitled to the minimum wage of state law, overtime pay at a rate of not less than. It does have that over here on page 40. An employee's use of sick time, vacation, personnel time will be counted towards the 40 hours when calculating the entitlement. So that's incorrect, right? Because
Well, it may be what they intended to have in this document. I don't know if that's what they intended or not.
Let's see.
But what I'm saying is, I wouldn't want it in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because where I used to work, it was never included.
No.
You could take a day a week vacation and get overtime for the,
And that's,
Right,
no,
that's
no,
not-
no, we
yeah,
don't want that.
that's a no-no.
That turns into an ATM machine that
craziness.
it
Yeah.
doesn't need to.
So we should really review that. Find out what happened there.
And what number is
was-
that?
5.1.8, at the end of that fair labor standard, there's a thing they're talking about the use of sick time, vacation time to be counted in calculating entitled overtime compensation.
Now, there was a change made, this is an earlier topic that you just spoke to, right at the end of the Obama administration regarding exempt employees who have a contract, but there's a salary cap that was established that does end up, I know my prior employer, we were probably going to end up picking up my confidential secretary who was exempt because she had a contract and was technically considered salaried. But because her salary was below a certain threshold, the FLSA was going to apply. And I have to get brushed up on that. That was a very recent change. And with the change in administration, I'm not even sure the new administration is going to follow that policy. But that was something that had been issued at the end of the Obama time. It was discussed quite a bit. We discussed it quite a bit. Not that my confidential secretary put in very much overtime, but during budget season, putting together budget books, our internal practice was to simply grant straight comp time for that.
That's all I've got.
Okay. And I'll look through it for next time, too.
Okay. All right, so what are we gonna do? Wait for Matt to do something, or?
Yeah, a couple of these things I really need to
Okay.
chase down. Yeah.
And I'll review it, too, just to make sure what changes you note those as well.
Okay. All right, so, the next agenda item is job descriptions. And so we've never gotten, the contracted job descriptions, so it's nice to actually have them, I think, thank you. But, and the Board of Selectmen did approve whatever you sent us?
That's right. So what we discussed was maintained the only changes that were made after the board approved the police chief's job description. The first time, Labor Council actually came back and said, I'd like you to change a couple other things. They were technical changes to be in compliance or to preserve the town's interests in the case of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the physical requirements of the job were beefed up a little bit. What sticks out to me is, have to be able to exercise necessary force to restrain an individual, which, with the arrest powers, that's a necessary physical ability, so that was added. It was sort of an important addition made regarding the potential impact or implications of the decision-making process of the individual. There was, serious personal injury could arise or liability to the town, and Labor Council inserted comma, or death. Because frankly, that is actually an important thing for the police chief to know when taking the job. So those were the types of changes that were made. They were all on the, specifically written by Labor Council, so the board revisited it and approved all of those. The job was posted, and the posting is still live. It's a 2-week posting. It's an internal posting the first time through. I could say the same for the mechanic. That posting closed Friday. We got one internal candidate who is qualified and has been hired into the position that was posted. We also got an external candidate, even though we weren't looking for external candidates this round. And my follow-up to that person, who was not as highly qualified as the internal candidate who applied, was still a very qualified person, somebody, a desirable employee. So we're going to have an informational interview and keep that resume on file with that person. That's where we stood with those two job descriptions. Now, the job descriptions for police lieutenant and officers, I think the new chief, once hired, will give that chief one of the first assignments, and just review those job descriptions and see if you want to make any changes. If changes are suggested, they would come through this process. They would come through the personnel board, the administrator, and go to the Board of Selectmen. But we'll wait for the new chief to make those decisions. I'm gathering others.
Yeah.
I have the facilities manager, the administrative assistant to the Board of Selectmen and town administrator, I've gathered those. I've also gathered the job descriptions from the town clerk's area. So I'm reviewing those.
Okay. So those are 3, or is there more than 3?
Oh, that's several. So in the clerk's area, I think there's a couple.
Okay.
In the police department, probably 4. And then the other 2 I mentioned, facilities manager and Suzanne's position, the administrative assistant. A little bit of reading.
Yeah. All right, and then under other here, it's, who wrote in fire department?
Me, we still don't have the fire department straightened out. Trying to
We have a
figure out-
captain firefighters on hold over here.
Yeah, there were some positions
we
we
didn't
didn't know if
have-
they really
we
even
didn't-
existed anymore,
Hmm.
or,
Yeah.
All right, I can turn.
Organize those. To a new sheet, this is with an update. You updated the mechanic.
I don't know if you wanna see this, Mike, she has put all this, Matt, all this work into, we've rated all the positions
Mm-hmm.
and where they fall.
Okay.
How we scored them.
This is hers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, these will need to be revamped because I know that there are people serving in yeah. All right, let me ask the chief what he wants to do about that.
He might have given us some,
He gave us some,
Yeah,
but
we
there were
missed-
some we still
we
had questions
missed
on.
but there were things in them that,
We couldn't rate because we had no numbers.
No.
Remember, it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or they were just
supervision
written,
of
it was
accountability.
like a,
Yeah,
he had
gave-
borrowed from other
Yeah.
towns or something like that, so it didn't really follow the format that we wanted, and so that's when we developed that,
Tried to do a new format.
Yeah.
So they could just identify, okay, fine, if
Yeah, it was
it's gonna be
just-
D,
Yeah.
put down what we think it should be.
Yeah, but this needs to be completely redone, because I think, just knowing what I do about how we're structured now, that doesn't, what I think reality is, doesn't bear reference to that directly. I know we have captains that are full-blown paramedics. I mean, we've
Right,
gotta
it
go
doesn't say
through
the
that.
position
Right.
itself, you have
Yeah.
to identify
Yeah.
exactly where it is.
Yeah.
That's what we've been trying to
Like I say,
find out.
even what was concerning is this, like, 4 things I think we mentioned before, between home pages, the position sheet, and the jobs, they don't match.
The
The titles,
descriptions,
are
yeah.
just, you know, it's like,
Right.
okay, where do I put it? And the
Yeah.
flow chart's the same way, it's like, how come it's not?
yeah, so there's one thing
So-
that town meeting votes on, but,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
like
and,
how-
but we don't have those
It
same,
doesn't correspond to anything we have.
yeah,
Okay,
okay,
all set?
yes. Okay, so is there any other, under old business? New business? You were gonna chat with us later on,
I
but-
did. I
Oh.
actually shared with you what's going on, so
Okay.
that was
Thank you.
that was my chat.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, anything else? Anybody else?
Just for me to
All
keep it
set.
short.
I
I wrote
just-
down everything I don't
I was
need.
gonna say, I think you can I have so
I
much
have,
paper
I
at
have so
home.
many of those.
This is exactly what's on the webpage anyway,
Okay.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use the paper for my grandkids to color.
Yeah. My daughter came home from Colorado for a visit, and she says, "Okay, Mom, you're a hoarder. Look at all this paper stuff around. You know, we're going to have to do something about this." I said, "Don't touch anything."
No. The minute you throw it away, you'll need it.
Yeah, I know, exactly, exactly. Okay, so do we have an idea of when we want to meet again? And I'll try to remember to write it down.
Mm.
So now we're getting into Thanksgiving time. And also the annual reviews and stuff, which you get to see. And that's good. I mean, but we like sort of a progress report on, well, yeah, I've asked for the annual reviews, and then I've gotten 5 of them, or 50% of them, or something, you know, back. We like to know that sort of stuff. You know, that it's working. And the annual reviews actually changed. Before, they were really terrible, not for the employee, but it was just, like, for a kindergarten person, it was stupid.
You
And
have to not show up for work to do poorly on that.
yeah, yeah. But now, there was a staff committee that put together the new annual review format, and that seems to have worked
Mm.
fairly well. Okay, so what's your idea for a meeting?
Seventh or 14th?
That's pretty soon. Or the
21st,
or the 28th. 21st is Thanksgiving week.
oh,
I'm busy.
or the 28th, you
No,
say?
Thanksgiving, isn't Thanksgiving the 23rd?
It's a
Yes.
Thursday, yeah.
The
Yeah.
21st is I'm cooking
Yeah.
She's good.
and cleaning.
And
Yeah.
cleaning.
And getting rid of my
Yeah.
hoarding stuff.
Um,
Tuesday is always cranberry sauce day. Isn't that the first thing you make, because it'll last in the fridge?
Yeah, it
It is
lasts
for
a
me.
year for me. I think the only person that uses is my niece, and so the last few years I've been just doing cranberries and oranges, and then my daughter said, "That's disgusting." So I said, "All right, I'll just buy a can of the stuff. I'm not going to eat it, you know." But Phoebe really likes it, so I have to have it here.
No,
Week of the 28th works best.
28th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
To go
good.
too soon, we have fall town meeting and then there's follow-up with that. And
Yeah, okay. And that, I have the trustees that night too, which is nice, so that's when I'll remember previous week, Thanksgiving Day. Oh, I better get an agenda out.
We have the lighting of the common on the 25th,
Wow.
early.
Huh. Okay, good, so at 2:45?
2:45, yeah?
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.